What are the features of the road, as you see it, that lead to accidents, congestion and uncertain driver behaviour? And the context for this, and I'll come to this later, we've got the Highways Agency annual safety report for November '07 for Area 6, and this has got a special section in the report, I'm sure you're familiar with this, on the A12, and this shows that the A12 seems to have particular accident problems in the sense of it being higher accident rate than the Area 6, Highways Agency Area 6, which is presumably East Anglia, average of trunk roads. In terms of motorcycles, goods vehicles, has 2.5 times the drink driving issues in terms of causation of accidents than trunk roads generally in East Anglia. Higher incidence of foreign drivers, you can understand that, higher incidence of fatigue, etc. Well, that's about driver behaviour in part, but I wonder if you could just talk firstly about what it is about the road that produces the things that happen that you have to both try and prevent and mop up when you can't prevent them.
Okay. For me, a very, very important area to look at, and if I may approach this as a lay person, as in I'm not a specialist traffic officer, and share some personal opinion as well, which I think may add to the debate. From a policing perspective, it represents the A12, that is 45 miles of 171 miles of trunk road. And I will in a moment talk about some of the differing sort of incidents that occur on the A12 as opposed to elsewhere. I think the A12 has some fairly unique features given the volume of traffic and its position in that part of the county as almost a bit of a funnel really that seems to draw in through traffic from quite a wide swathe of the county in the absence of perhaps other significant trunk or arterial roads. So it has a very significant sort of role to play in terms of both local people, local communities, people using to travel through the county, perhaps work elsewhere, and also general infrastructure in terms of transport, heavy goods and so on. So it actually, given its size and shape, majority of which has no hard shoulder, significant proportions of which have no lay-bys, actually presents sort of challenges in removing or dealing with an incident or a collision once it happens, which other roads I think don't suffer from. So I think whilst the level of incident in itself is important, it's the ability to reduce the overall impact is an additional challenge that this road presents. Perhaps not uniquely, but certainly fairly unique for the county, I would suggest. To give you an example of that, there are no positions on the A12 where uniformed police vehicles patrol vehicles can park and position themselves. And I think that's a gap. I understand from various research, and I'm sure, colleague, you'll be more familiar with this than I, that the average, if there is such a thing, is a police car when it's patrolling along the street has a 900-metre influence zone, front and rear. And that means clearly on the A12, when you look at the high density areas, when you look at the high accident areas, our traffic police cars, which do patrol it regularly, will move through quickly, have a limited duration in which to influence driver behaviour by the sheer presence. And I think actually positioning in at appropriate intervals, staging posts, as you do often see on motorways, would actually aid not only patrol, but that deterrent factor and reassurance around that. There are some factors like that I think present difficulty. I think also as a road, particularly when you go up the Marks Tay, going north, that sort of area, the road itself has, in my humble opinion, very limited, if any, meaningful diversion routes. And those that there aren't designed, because they're villages, to take the heavy goods vehicle traffic, etc. So when people do divert, they bring those ancillary roads to a complete and utter standstill, which widens the impact on yet more local people. So you end up with, if you want, a mushrooming effect on traffic flow, over and above that one would normally expect when there's a blockage of whatever sort on a normal arterial road, if I can use that description loosely. I think that in the absence of those diversion routes, in the absence of a hard shoulder, some areas where we would benefit by additional lay-bys, and I'll give an example of that in a moment if I will, to assist us removing vehicles, I think it's perhaps not unsurprising that when there is an incident or a serious collision, that its impact is significantly greater, perhaps in a shorter period, has a greater impact more quickly and lasts for slightly longer than perhaps the average might normally be. That's what I would probably suggest in answer to your question, sir.
And is what you say the case that these are particular features when you compare them to the other major trunk roads in the county, such as a bit of the A11, the A120, the A13, the A127? Would you say that in the factors you've mentioned, the A12 stands out from the other roads, from the other major roads that you police as well, in those respects?
I think other major roads have some of those factors, but perhaps not that grouping in such prevalence as the A12 does. I think it's unusual to find a two-lane road with that volume of traffic, with no hard shoulder, no diversion routes, no means of putting a contraflow in, with that level of importance, all in one place.
Yeah.
Whereas you might get one of those features, or perhaps even two, elsewhere. So it has, I think, almost a unique combination that means when there is an incident, it has, as I said earlier, quite a significant impact on traffic flow and local people quicker than perhaps another road might.
The figures we have access to suggest, as I was saying, that the road safety or the accident record of this road, even expressed for 100 million vehicle kilometres and those kind of ways of standardising it, still has a worse accident record than most other roads. Is that reflected in your statistics too? And what's the main character of those? I mean, you've got the usual spread, but is there a particular set of causes of accidents that are peculiar to this road? Is there a particular speeding problem, for example, because of the geometry of the road, or is there a particular problem with people coming on and off access points because of short lanes and on and off lay-bys and so on?
The short answer to that question is yes, there is. What it might help is, if again, is given an overview, put it in a context,
yes, please do.
if that helps. In terms of incidents that the police have dealt with in the county, this is the calendar year 06 and 07. In the calendar year 07, we dealt with some 485,000 and some incidents of all sizes and shapes, which was an increase of 1.9% on the previous calendar year 06. Of those incidents, 21,492 were road traffic collisions. That's for the county as a whole, which represented an increase of just under 15% on the previous year. And I have some 14.8 in terms of road traffic collisions across the county of all sizes and shapes.
1 year.
14% increase, yeah. In terms of incidents on the A12, we've got the 485,000 for the fours. For the A12, there were 9,938 incidents which the police attended. There may have been others from other agencies, and no doubt a significant portion, for example, the fire would have attended, but a lot they wouldn't have. And
that's about 30 a day.